Hello everyone, it's Stella.
And Tarrant here from Meeple University. Today we'll be teaching you how to play Solani, game designed by Drake Villarreal and published by Final Frontier Games.
Let's get to the game.
Part of Final Frontier's Pillars of Creation series, Solani draws its inspiration from Navajo traditions of astronomy. In this drafting and tile placement game, players will build up their night skies by drafting and placing star branches and circular sky features, which can include clusters of stars, astral images, or planets. Players will place tactically, aiming to be the one who has the highest scoring sky, and whoever scores the most points once all of the skies are filled will be the winner. To set up for the basic game, give each player a player board and then find your score marker which matches your icon and place it at 0 on the scoring track. Shuffle and draw a dark branch setup tile and then place it in a random orientation. Each player takes 4 dark branch tiles and then places them in the matching configuration shown on that tile based on their perspective of the tile. You may now return all of these as well as leftover dark branch tiles to the box. Gather all the cream branch tokens and add them to the branch bag. There are 2 types of circular cream-coloured feature tile in the game. The ones showing any of these 6 combinations of stars are called star cluster tiles. These are all gathered up and added to the star cluster bag. The others all show unique pictures, and these are called astral tiles. Find and shuffle the astral deck. Deal 4 of these cards at random face up to each player and place their matching astral tiles on top. Unused astral tiles and cards can be returned to the box. Take the 16 coloured planet tiles and then randomly take and place 8 in a 2-player game, 10 in a 3-player game, or 12 in a 4-player game, starting from the middle and moving outwards. Leave any leftovers to the side for now. Keep all of the 20-point tokens nearby in case you need them. And for the basic game, return the sky scoring cards and the endgame objective tiles to the box. Give the first player token to the player who is on the left of the player with the coyote board for the first round. You're now ready to play. Solani is played over 12 rounds and each round is played in 4 phases. First is preparation, where the board is seeded with branch and star cluster tiles for the round. Second is drafting. Players will select branches and features from the board until each player has one of each. Third is placement and scoring. Players will add their new tiles to their boards, possibly triggering scores and bonus astral effects. And you'll finish with a short cleanup phase to clean up ready for the next round. You'll play over a total of 12 rounds and players will do some scoring during the game. After 12 rounds, you'll go to end of game scoring, which will account for most of your points, and whoever has the highest score wins. Now let's go through each phase of a round in detail. The first phase is preparation, and this is all about seeding the main board with tiles for drafting. From the branch bag, draw a number of tiles equal to the number of players in the game plus 1, and then place them face up, that is the side showing the connections, on these spaces at the top of the board. Take the same number of star cluster tiles from that bag and place them face up at the bottom of the board. Second is the drafting phase, and during this phase each player will select 2 tiles. Play begins with the current first player, who chooses any one of the available branches or any one of the available star clusters, adding it to the appropriate holding space on their player board. Then in clockwise order from the first player, each other player takes a turn to draft one of the same type of tile. Once all players have taken their turn, there will be 1 tile left in that row. Then draft from the other row in reverse turn order. That is, whoever took the last choice from the first row takes the first choice from the second row. Continue in anti-clockwise order until all players have taken a turn. When you take a branch, it always goes straight to your player board, but when you take a star cluster, you have the option to immediately cash it in for a planet from the planet track. This happens before the next player drafts. The first planet taken must come from one of the two ends, or one of the two middle, and you must cash in a number of stars on a cluster based on whichever of these icons is closest. So if I were to cash in this 3-star cluster, the planet I would have to take is this red one. The next 3-star a player cashed in would be used on this black planet, while the next 4-star exchange could be used on either of these planets. Star clusters with bright stars, these white ones, can be equally used to exchange as ones without. When the drafting phase is over, each player will now have one branch and one feature, which could be a star cluster or a planet. Third is the placement and scoring phase, and players will resolve this phase independently and simultaneously. Each player must place both of the tiles they drafted into their skies one at a time, and may be able to resolve scoring or other placements after each of the two main placements. There are many motivating factors for where you might want to place your tiles, but there are only two formal restrictions. When placing a branch, it must be placed adjacent to an existing feature. That is, a curved edge of the tile must adjoin a circular tile which is already on your board, and this can include one of the 5 pre-printed tiles. Secondly, when placing a circular feature tile, it must be placed adjacent to at least one branch tile. Once again, that means it shares a circular edge with an existing placed tile. This can include your branch tiles or your starting dark branch tiles. There are no placement restrictions related to the connections on these tiles. However, these are a key motivator for your placement as they'll contribute to your endgame scoring. In particular, a star cluster is only going to score if it has exactly as many adjacent connections as the number of stars in the cluster, including pre-printed connections, while a planet will score only if it has no adjoining connections. It's unlikely, for example, that you would want to place this connector here, as it would invalidate the scoring for both of these features. But flipping it to this orientation will work much better. Similarly, you're less likely to put this 3-star cluster here adjacent to 2 connections when you could instead place it here. However, these considerations get resolved only at the end of the game. After each of your placements, check for one of the following 2 immediate bonuses. The first will arise anytime you place a star cluster tile with a bright star on it. That's one of these white coloured stars. After making your placement, choose one of the skies which that tile has been placed in. These are defined up here. The eastern sky, for example, is these 8 feature spaces. The southern sky is these 8 spaces. This is the northern sky, and this is the western sky. As you can see, there are many feature spaces which exist in 2 different skies. After placing a bright star, choose one of that tile's skies and then immediately score 1 point for each bright star within it. With this placement here, your options would be 1 point for the eastern sky or 2 points for the southern sky. So you would, of course, choose the southern and gain 2 points. Had the tile been placed in the western sky, the immediate score would have been 4. The second bonus comes when one or more of your dark branches has been completely surrounded by other branches. For this, you don't look at the curved adjacent features, instead you look at whether the tile is blocked in on all of its flat arm edges. This dark branch is now surrounded on all 4 sides by other tiles or the edge of the board, so it would be considered closed. It's possible to close 2 dark branches with a single placement. For each dark branch that you close, you must flip the tile over to its blank side. You must choose one of your remaining astral tiles and then place it according to all of the normal rules for feature placement onto your board. Then score 0, 1 or 2 points immediately based on how many of that astral's conditions were met. This one has a simple placement condition. Place it in one of the 7 highlighted spaces here and you'll gain a point. In one of the 8 highlighted spaces here and you'll gain a point. And if you're in one of the overlapping spaces, you'll get both points. Some other objectives you'll come across. This would score if you had one connection to this tile at the time you placed it. This one would score if you had planets in the same skies as the tile that you placed. This scores by being connected to identical branch tokens. Some score based on relation to bright stars, and so on. In each case, the points are scored immediately and based specifically on the placement of that astral tile as the board is laid out at that moment. Once all players have finished placement and scoring, you'll move on to the cleanup phase, and there are 3 steps. First, the leftover branch and cluster tiles are returned to the box. Secondly, if there are no planets remaining on the planet track, they've all been taken, and this is the first time that's happened through the game, sweep out all of the cluster tiles on the planet track, returning them to the box, and then place 4 random planet tokens from those which were left over after setup on the central row of the track. You'll only do this replenishment once for the game. After that, there'll simply be no planets left. Finally, hand the first player marker 1 step clockwise and proceed to the next round. The game ends after 12 rounds, and at this point, each player's maps will be completely full. Now, count up your final scores. Firstly, score the points you gained during the game. Secondly, you'll score points for stars. Every star cluster tile, including those pre-printed, will score points equal to its number of stars if it has exactly as many connections as stars. Bright stars and normal stars count the same for these purposes. So this tile has 2 connections. It scores 2 points. This single star cluster has no connections, so scores 0. Evaluate all star clusters in this way and score the points. Then score your planets. Check each planet to make sure it has no connections. If there are any connections, remove that planet from your board. Now for each of your 4 skies, separately score 2 points for each differently coloured planet in the sky. Here, the northern sky has 2 planets for 4 points. The western sky has 1 planet for 2 points. The eastern sky has 2 planets for 4 points. While the southern sky has 2 planets, but they're both the same colour, so it counts only once and scores 2. Add those points to your total. You will skip bonus scoring in the basic game. The player with the highest score wins. If tied, whoever had the single highest score from star clusters breaks the tie, and if still tied, victory is shared. Once you've mastered the basic game, you can add 2 extra elements to the game, the endgame scoring bonuses and the sky scoring cards. To set up, shuffle the endgame scoring tiles, and then, regardless of your player count, lay 4 of them out for all players to see. Then take the sky scoring cards, remove the ones which don't match your player count, and then arrange the cards in descending order in a pile with the blue side face up. The sky scoring cards introduce 2 new ways of scoring during the game. The first is that it increases the value of astral tokens. When you place and score an astral token, in addition to scoring based on its objectives, you score further points based on what's printed at the bottom of this card. The second is that the first time you completely fill all of the feature spaces in one of your skies, here it's the eastern sky, score the points printed on the top sky scoring card, and then, if not already, flip it over to its red side. All of the information on the red side is identical, but then when you get to the cleanup phase, you will discard the red card if it's face up. This reduces both the sky scoring and astral bonuses as the game goes on, incentivizing completing these early in the game. Then finally, at the end of the game, you'll evaluate your player board against the 4 objective tiles placed during setup. Add those scores to the bonus row of the score track, As before, highest score wins, and star clusters breaks the tie. And that's how to play Solani. We hope that you enjoyed this video.
Thank you so much for watching. Everything you do will help us. Every single view, every time you like our videos, our Instagram, every single comment, and let us know that you're there. And make sure you're doing something fun today. See you next time.